So, I finally got the chance to watch the Batman movie, and let me tell you all that I was pleasantly surprised. I mean, to be very frank with you all, I didn't had any expectations with this movie whatsoever. I tried to avoid every single spoiler out there for this one, and the only thing which I knew from behind the scenes was that there was this one stuntman who fell off while riding the bike, the bat cycle. Just that's it, nothing more than that. So I didn't really was carrying any kind of an expectation, unlike the Spider-Man No Way Home movie. So when I actually got around to watch this movie in the theater with my friends, I was just pleasantly surprised. And to basically sum up the movie, I'd say that this was actually pretty good. And what I really feel is important here, which I don't really see a lot of people highlighting online, is that this movie celebrates Batman. This celebrates the legacy of Batman. It gives so many nudges to the entire legacy of this character, this massively popular character. At the same time, it has changed a popular notion for this character which has been set up in the last decade or so, which is very exciting for me, and I'm really happy to see that actually in the theater. So hello and welcome to WhyZ, and thank you so much for joining in. In this video, we're going to talk about the Batman. This is not going to be your average normal review per se. I'm pretty sure that by the time you are watching this video, you have already seen the reviews for this movie, so it doesn't make sense for me to actually make a review, a quote-unquote proper spoiler review for this movie. So I'm going to format this more along the lines of a general discussion to a video essay theory kind of thing. But before that, if you're new here, then please consider subscribing to our channel, since I do weekly anime and manga related content along with a bunch of other stuff. With that being said, let's just jump into the video. Now, right from the get-go, let's just lay out some of the most important things. I know you all might have heard this numerous times before, literally numerous times before, but this movie is gorgeous. It's not just dark for the sake of being dark, it just eludes a different expression of its own. And the cinematography, I'm sure that you have heard this term so many times before, but it's just beautiful. It has a distinct feel to the movie, and every time you watch a scene from this movie, you are immediately drawn into it. The color coding, the darkness, everything is just used in a proper manner. It's not too dark every single time, and also it emphasizes upon the key element of this movie, which is red. There are just some absolutely gorgeous shots involving black and red, and it basically symbolizes the character growth which Bruce Wayne as well as Batman is having throughout this entire movie, and the thumbnail basically represents what I'm trying to say. Now, for the past decade or so, I feel like Batman has been portrayed as an anti-Superman character. Typically, Superman was always showcased as the superhero icon, as the beacon of superheroes, who is someone whom people look up to, who is an inspiration, who is a symbol of hope. And on the other hand, there is Batman, who is sort of like a counter, sort of like a vigilante for Superman, who fends off Superman, and therefore he lies under the shadows, and therefore he is never really associated with hope as much as we would like to see it. There are moments in the animated series when he is showcasing this hope, but typically in the live action, most of the times his hope aspect or this kind of a side to Batman is omitted most of the time. You have to showcase a more dark and brooding character. And even though I'm a huge fan of the Nolan trilogy, I think that this was exemplified with the Christian Bale and Nolan trilogy. And it got to a much bigger problem with the Batfleck series as well. And I like individual aspects from both of those movies, and the Christopher Nolan trilogy is probably one of my favorite comic book trilogies out there. But I'm just trying to lay down the options here. I'm just trying to lay down the ground here, because this movie significantly does something different for the character of Batman, even though it is actually celebrating the character of Batman. It is celebrating the entire legacy of this character, because every time you are watching this movie, every scene exudes some form of a nostalgic element which is associated with this huge character. There are elements, there are Easter eggs from the Long Halloween to Killing Joke, to Joker, to a lot of different characters. In fact, the actual portrayal of the Riddler really reminded me a lot of Bane from the Nolan trilogy, especially with how heavy he was breathing inside the mask. But beyond all of those things, let's just talk about Batman himself, or rather Bruce Wayne himself. Because there's something very intrinsic to his actual character which has been shown here, and basically the entire character growth and character development of Batman is just surreal in this movie. And the movie, in fact, actually begins with a voiceover, and I was quite surprised to see that, but it really leads us to a moment where Batman is saving a civilian from a group of random thugs. Batman just emerging out of the shadows, or rather materializing out of the shadows. The footsteps which we can actually hear, it's just incredible. And all of this is happening while the symbol of Batman, throughout the entire city, Batman has made it clear that he's not going to be available at every single point in time and every single place, because at the end of the day, he's human, he's not a superpowered being. But it's his symbol which is actually providing a beacon of hope for people, wherein just after seeing the symbol, thugs and criminals are just moving away, they're being fearful of him. And this all leads up to the moment where Batman is rescuing a civilian for the very first time. Actually, in this movie, not very first time in life. He has been doing this for the past 2 years. But when we see this, the civilian is actually telling, or rather begging, Batman not to hurt him. Although he is providing some sort of a hope to the people, but it's still not enough. He is more seen as a fearful creature, as a vengeful creature, not a beacon of hope. It is transformed later on throughout the entire movie, but there are bits and pieces of it sprinkled in the beginning, and it leads to a greater overarching scenario or overarching arc for the entire movie. And through this, we start seeing the change for Batman. Now, in the middle, when Batman's legacy, or rather his father's legacy, is actually revealed, I thought that maybe we are going into the entire cliched plot point of Batman being the symbol of vengeance. It's literally been his catchphrase for years and years and years. And in fact, here in this movie also, in the early parts of the movie, he's actually saying this on his own, that I am vengeance. But this leads to a much worse scenario wherein Riddler's followers are actually becoming sort of like Batman themselves. They are calling themselves I am vengeance, because they are seeking vengeance from the scum of this society, because the society had shunned them, and the powerful, the rich, had literally outcasted them, had literally shunned them away. So that's why they were adopting Batman's moniker of I am vengeance. And that's where Batman realizes that maybe the way in which he's dealing the things is sort of wrong. It sort of becomes his point of transition and how he changes for the betterment. And this is portrayed very, very, very well throughout the later half of the movie when the flooding begins for Gotham. Now, I personally was very shocked and surprised to see this element of the story, because I was not expecting it at all. I mean, sure, Gotham is inspired by New York City, but it just didn't click me immediately that maybe the Riddler is actually doing something like this. But throughout the last half of the movie, Batman's characterization changes, and when he lights up the red flare, he just reaches out for the people who are trapped under the debris. And initially people are hesitant, including the mayor, who is not willing to give Batman the hand. But lo and behold, the child comes up first, and he's the one who takes Batman's arms. And this is the same child whom Batman rescues prior in the movie, and this is sort of a recurring theme here. And seeing this, even the newly elected mayor also chose to take Batman's hands of hope. I mean, I just really can't stop talking about how good the flare scene really was. If I really want it, I can make a 10-15 minute video just talking about how good this particular moment itself was. It basically signifies the growth that Batman has had throughout this entire movie. And as I said before, I'm not saying, or I'm not discouraging or discarding the previous movies. This kind of an arc, this kind of a character growth has been seen through different forms of Batman as well, but this was significantly much more effective in its storytelling narrative, and specifically how it utilizes the actual scene here. When we first saw it sort of in the original trailer, it was really ambiguous, and we thought of numerous different things about how Batman might be having an underground fight in the sewers maybe, but this particular moment here, it symbolizes everything which stands for this movie, about how Batman is actually leading the people to safety from this darkness. He's providing the beacon of hope, he's providing, or rather he's lighting up the beacon of hope in the form of this flare. It's a cinematic masterpiece, it's a cinematographic masterpiece. At the same time, it just looks so gorgeous, it's just beautiful. This is probably one of my favorite scenes in cinema period, not just superhero movies, but rather cinema in general. This scene is just top tier, and this moment is going to be remembered for a very, very long time. and this is symbolized throughout the very end when on the top of the building, on the top of the stadium, Batman is rescuing the civilians and the last civilian is not willing to let go of Batman's hand. And this is the symbolism of the change which has happened throughout the entirety of this movie and how he chose to forsake his vengeance for a more hopeful icon. This doesn't mean that Batman will never be dark. This doesn't mean that he's going to completely change his demeanor. He's not going to get out of the shadows, but it just gives us a more hopeful persona for the Batman, and this is something which I really like, because Batman is not just a one-dimensional character who is just supposed to be dark, brooding and edgy. He's not that. Some of the media try to portray it, but if you go back and watch the animated series, there are just so many good examples of how Batman is such a great character. And it was also really good for me to see the actual detective aspects of Batman here in this particular movie, instead of him being a part of a superhero group, which has typically become the norm now for these movies. I mean, sure, it's not really as realistic as everyone is pertaining it to be, but for what it's worth, I feel like this was a very good non-origin as well as origin story for Batman. This is not your typical origin story, but at the same time, this could be a very good origin story or a reintroduction or a re-origin story for Batman, where his character goes to a great level of character development and character growth. The vengeance turns to a symbol of hope. And that's basically it for this video. There are many more aspects of the Batman movie which I really enjoyed. I was really surprised to see Batman's eyeliner or kajal, whatever you want to call it, because this has been a joke for I don't even remember how many years now, because every time Batman puts on the mask, he has the black shadows lining his eyes, but whenever he puts off the mask, those shadows, those eyeliners are just magically gone. This was basically a meme, but this has finally been answered now. Here in this version of the Batman, we actually get to see those eyeliners, and that was really good. There are many more events from the movie, there are many more scenes from the movie which I really enjoyed. The car chase sequence with the Batmobile was just absolutely spectacularly done, and the entire subplot of Selina is just fine, I'd say. And one more thing, I know it's not exactly relevant to the theme of this particular video, but I just need to talk about it. Maybe I'll make a separate video discussing it in details, but I was really surprised with the Wayne Manor and how Alfred and Batman are actually dealing with the cases. This entire prop room, or this entire room rather, really reminded me of the Harry Potter movies. I'm sure this is Warner Brothers and this is Robert Pattinson, but this particular space sort of reminded me about Lupin's office and a mix of Dumbledore's office as well. This is something which all of my friends also caught, and I was really pleasantly surprised to see this. I don't know if it was a purposeful thing or not, but whatever it is, it was really good. So this is it for this quick video, guys. I want to talk more about this movie, so if you all are interested, please give this video a thumbs up, share it with your friends, mention your thoughts in the comment section. That really helps us a lot. And please do subscribe to the channel to stay notified whenever I upload a new video. So this is it for today. See you all on the next one. In the meantime, join the channel membership for some very cool perks and features, and join the Discord server for more. Thanks a lot.